Welcome to the Ground and Pwn Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. As you are listening to this, I am on the other side of the planet, so rather than trying to do some timely news with some terrible time zone conversions, we have a fun show planned for you. 2 topics on the board today. Scott, which direction do you want to head first?
To set it up, we are doing drafts. We like to do these drafts. They're fun, right? So we're doing them again. We've done them before, but we have 2 this time instead of 1. And I think one of them is like more pure gaming, and another is almost like more of a hybrid of what we typically do, which is gaming and fighting, right? So why don't we start with that one? The one that's very much like it's our DNA to go this way, right? So
Mario's Game and Fight.
Mario's Game and Fight. Yeah, there we go. That'd be
right.
Imagine a Nintendo fighting game.
Imagine that. It's never been done before.
No, but you know what I mean, though. I mean, like a legit, like
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, maybe not Mortal Kombat, but like let's say in the same vein as like a Street Fighter or something like that, where there's like legit one-on-one combat and there's like health meters and like true fighting game style.
People play Smash as a one-on-one fighting game sometimes, and it is intense.
Right? I didn't
if
even
you've
know
ever
that.
watched like competitive Smash where it's 1v1,
No.
It is wild how fast-paced and like frantic it is. Like people are like shield rolling and like just dashing all over. It's crazy watching like the high-level Smash players go 1v1.
Okay, all right, then maybe I stand corrected on that already. But like,
and also,
I knew what I was saying when I was saying it, but just so we're clear there, I didn't walk into, oh my god, that's right, there is a fighting game that they made that everybody loves and been playing for decades.
Link did appear very capably in Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube.
Yes, he was. That's right.
Which was
Soul Calibur, was it 2 or 3?
It was 2. 3 was a PS2 exclusive.
Okay.
And then 4 was the one with Star Wars characters in it randomly.
So Link was the one it was GameCube, correct?
Yes.
Link was in that one, and it was
Heihachi on
Heihachi
PS2.
was in PS2, and then who was in
Spawn?
The Xbox one of Spawn.
Yeah, so when they re-released the Soul Calibur 2 on PlayStation Network and Xbox, they put Spawn in it because they said that was the easiest one to license, I believe. And
I bet.
Maybe Heihachi was in it as well, because Tekken has since gone multi-platform.
Sure.
And but Link obviously was nowhere to be found. But I wish they would do a GameCube, or not a GameCube, a Switch version of the GameCube Soul Calibur 2 and put Link in it. Just have it be like kind of like we're getting GoldenEye on Switch. Put Soul Calibur 2 on Switch and let me have Link back in the game.
I like it. Well, you know what? We're already way too far off topic here. We definitely do want to get back.
That's what we do best. That's what we do best.
No, it's great. It's great to rip, but we got to focus here because we've got some really cool stuff planned for you listeners out there. And the first one that we are going to, the first of these drafts, is like I said, it's a kind of a hybrid between gaming and fighting here. So what we're going to do is we are going to, Brian and myself, draft UFC athletes. MMA athletes. It could be, it doesn't have to be only UFC. We're going to draft a roster for a fighting game, like an arcade style fighting game. And I think the goal here would be to find, different styles of fighter, but also maybe engaging personalities and that kind of thing. That would, make up kind of almost like the idea of like what you would have in like a Street Fighter game, right? Where there's like, they come from different parts of the world. They have these very unique traits, but they also have distinct fighting styles. And that's kind of what we're aiming to go for here. We're going to make sure we have, a good mix of men's and women's fighters, male and female fighters, just to make sure that we're not, leaning too far one way or the other. It's probably still going to be leaning male. Mixed martial arts is still a male-dominated sport in terms of numbers of athletes, so I think it's okay if we go that way. But
sure,
yeah, we'll make sure we'll have some healthy representation from the ladies as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at like the game by which this segment was inspired, Street Fighter 2, it was a largely male roster as well, which that's indicative of the time probably. But
we can be more evolved than that.
Of course, we're going to have more female representation in our fighting game roster than Street Fighter 2 did back in the day. But at the same time, if you look at the number of divisions in the men's division and the number of divisions in the women's side, it is 2-1.
Sure. Now, I think we were shooting for 12.
12 total.
12 total. I feel like we could probably end up going over to 14 or 16, but I think we need to have an even number.
We'd have an editor here, and by editor I mean each other. We need to hold each other accountable here.
So I'm gonna try and keep like a running tally.
I have one listed. If you go into our shared document, I have a running list at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, you can. How about you take care of that? Because my list is in a different document. I don't have to make all these like click 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 noises you guys are gonna hear on the other side.
In Street Fighter 2 fashion, we're going to try to shoot to have 8 playable characters and 4 boss characters. So
yes, that's right.
We'll have to decide that at some point if somebody is worthy of being a boss character.
That's true. That's a good point. I forgot about that element of this.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to see who our M Bison is.
Yeah, I already have one in mind.
Okay. All right. Well, it's Ben Rothwell.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So, do we want to do a random number generator to see who goes first?
Go for it. Why not?
Okay, I'll go. You want random number generator, or you want me?
Yeah, whatever you feel like, my friend.
All right, 1 or 2. Call it.
2.
It is 1. So I will go first.
All right, that's all right.
All right. So
who we bringing into the fold here?
I am going to put a guy who fights like a video game character.
Okay.
And it might be an unexpected pick, but he is a current champion. He has probably the fight of the year in 2022. That is Yuri Prohashka.
Good choice. He is on my list as well.
Yeah, he's not been in a boring fight in his entire tenure in the UFC. He has had some of the most...
To be fair, it's like a 3-fight tenure.
That's true, but with the sample size we have to work with in the UFC, he has shown that he pulls off the most incredible finishes also. Even his submission was improbable and incredible and the most clutch submission of the year, probably.
It was a really amazing fight. I think right now it still stands for me as the clubhouse leader for fight of the year.
I would agree with you 100%.
It really was just kind of like a legendary fight. It was at times sloppy. They were at times tired, but I don't think that those are disqualifiers in terms of giving you like a fight of the year caliber thing. I think they left everything out there.
And I think that he's a good starting point because while he fights like a video game character, I don't think he belongs in the boss category.
No, he does not seem like a boss. I think he's definitely someone who'd just be kind of like walking the world warrior path, right?
Yes, despite the fact that, and also, his training montages are things of video game characters as well.
He has that distinctive look. He's got this whole like samurai personality. It's like there's everything. He really is like, he was almost like, I don't think we drew it up based on him, but he absolutely had to be in. The fact he was on both of our lists, I think, speaks volumes too.
100%. And, even though he is technically the final boss of his division at this moment, I think he is an amazing pick for our main line roster. So Scott,
if you do say so yourself as the man who picked him.
I am going to throw it to you now to see what you got.
Okay, so I am going to... I was going to say I was going to counter, but I don't think it's countering. I'm just going to... Here's my next choice for us, and that is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Ooh, I like it.
And I think this is perfect, especially one, because he is the gamer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is like... Of all the fighters ever, I think of him as the gamer. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's just... The fact that he's got this whole arsenal of moves, he moves all over the place. He's so fast. Like his speed would be like off the charts in the game. Like you'd want him to be like able to close distance, and he would have like the mighty whiz bar would be in his arsenal too. So the whole like he can do almost anything. I think he'd be like kind of like a jack of all trades kind of fighting style.
Yeah, he's almost like the Ryu.
I guess so, in a sense. Yeah.
Well-rounded, can do anything,
but also
fireballs
be very
out.
Fast. Like Ryu's not necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
This guy, he's got a different dimension to him, so he's going to be like hyper fast, easily the fastest in the game.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah,
one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Of course.
Does he belong in the boss category? Is he our Vega? Maybe.
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, he might be like the star. He might be like the main protagonist, Mighty Mouse Johnson.
All right, well, we will keep him out of the boss category for now.
In fact, if you're asking me who'd be like the cover art, I think it would
Demetrius
be him.
Mighty Mouse Johnson?
Yes. maybe him and like another person, but like
Yeah.
he's got to be on the cover.
That's a good point.
And I think he'd be honored.
Though certain versions of Street Fighter 2 had Ryu and M. Bison on the cover.
Well, that would be okay too. That's okay.
And by the way, for our international listeners, we were using the American versions of the Shadaloo bosses.
Yes, let's be very clear about that one.
So Vega equals Claw, M. Bison equals Dictator, and Boxer equals Balrog.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for the international folks.
Yes, we're doing our best here. But
is it only in Japan that it's different, or is it worldwide except for North America? I don't know where.
I think it's just Western is, or maybe it's U.S. I don't know. But I know in Japan for sure it is. But like the fighting game community has embraced the nomenclature of Boxer, Claw, Dictator, and then of course Sagat is just Sagat because he was in Street Fighter 1, right. So his name never changed.
Of course.
But yeah.
Sagat, by the way, would have been a very fascinating MMA fighter. I would have loved to see his MMA career.
It would have been. I mean, he was a Muay Thai. He's the king of Muay Thai.
I understand.
Speaking of Muay Thai,
yeah,
my next pick might be a boss character.
Okay, let's see.
Valentina Shevchenko.
Okay, interesting.
Potentially the queen of Muay Thai as far as the UFC is concerned.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, she's also like a legacy Muay Thai fighter. Like her mother was a Muay Thai fighter as well.
Yeah.
So she's like, it's in her blood.
So do we think that she's a boss character? I mean, she's clearly one of the greatest female athletes we've ever seen in the sport.
There's a good chance she is, yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Amanda Nunes, there's a good chance she would be considered the female GOAT in the UFC.
We might have to figure out the bosses like by the end.
Okay,
right?
let's do that.
I feel like it's tough to like go it on the fly because we're gonna ask every time, and then when we did it, we're like, well, what if we go back? Maybe it should be that.
All right, we will just add Valentina to the list.
Yeah, let's do it. But yeah, we can really sort out their roles at the end.
She could almost be like if we're putting two people on the cover, it could be Demetrius Johnson and Valentina Shevchenko because they're both well-rounded fighters. They're both dominant champions from their time, and they're both just they can do anything really.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I would imagine that another female fighter getting added to this list also has a good claim for getting on the cover, but
Yeah, I have a feeling I know which one you're going to be referring to.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I think that's also a thing we have to figure out is what our box art looks like. Well, that is the final thing we have to figure out. Sure.
Yeah, that works. Well, should I go now? Should I
go for it?
So I think because you picked a lady this time, I'm also going to pick a female fighter here, and it's probably the one you might have been referring to, Ronda Rousey.
I mean, I was actually referring to somebody else, but
interesting.
Ronda Rousey is a solid pick. But talk to me about what her moveset would be like in this game.
Obviously, she's a former Olympic judoka. I kind of was between her and Kayla Harrison. I don't think we can do both. I feel like you have to go with one or the other because they're going to be like too much of a similar background. Yes. But I said, you know what? Let's go with Ronda because she's also got kind of this like, it's kind of like. I mean, not that Kayla Harrison doesn't have a brashness to her, but it's really for her. It's more of a very much a cockiness and a confidence in herself, right? Cocky. I only say cocky in the sense of not trying to be derogatory, but just she has a very much like she likes to she likes to do the trash talk in the gym. She'll tell anybody that she likes to do trash talk. But it's really more of like. For fun, right? She's just doing it to like kind of like mix it up, right? But Ronda, yeah.
I think that you are touching on a very, very important element that I completely forgot about until this very moment. When you play Street Fighter, after a match, they show one fighter, the losing fighter, bloodied up and everything, and then the winning fighter has a little voice line.
Yes.
So far, before Ronda, the three fighters that we had are usually very, very respectful in victory. This one,
typically, yeah.
Ronda, depending on who she's going against. I mean, Kat Zingano, she was very sportsmanlike after that.
Yeah.
Misha Tate, not so much. So no. I could see her having some pretty bad burns in the post-fight kind of voice line.
Sure. Like I imagine Yuri would be some sort of like wisdom from
philosophy of some sort.
Yeah, from Eastern philosophy.
I'll be right back. I need to go punch more trees.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, for Ronda, it would definitely be a lot more of that. But like, this is the first like real grappler that we've kind of put in there, and I think her moves would be a lot of like heavy throws that would do some like hyper damage and that kind of thing. Like especially the head and arm throw that it's more or less like you don't see men's fighters do that like anymore. It's been a long time since they even really did. But for whatever reason, women's MMA, you still see this throw all the time, and it was a throw that Ronda was like kind of known for doing.
Yeah.
And I actually saw it on display in the most recent UFC when Mackenzie Dern, she did this throw. And every time fighters do this throw, I'm like, why are you doing this? It's too risky. You're just going to give up your back. But when Mackenzie Dern does it, I'm like, you know what? She'll probably be able to scramble out of it and take the back herself. So, like, she's got full permission to do this throw as far as I'm concerned.
When it comes to jiu-jitsu,
she'll make it work.
When it comes to jiu-jitsu, in Dern we trust. Let's be real.
Exactly. So, like, anytime you make the grappling exchange there, I feel like she's got it. But to Ronda especially, there's going to be the idea that, yeah, she's going to have these big throws, maybe have some kind of power, strikes as well, but also there's probably some element in there that we need to find like kind of a weakness for, like if she like gets behind in a fight, like maybe things start not going her way and her stats like drop or something like that. It's our fighting game. We can do what we want. We can build in whatever mechanisms we want.
True.
Like that would be interesting if we had something along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got some other ideas like that for some other fighters I might pick as well. So
okay.
We could say
I am debating one of two fighters for my next pick.
Okay.
And I feel like we might only be able to include one.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like we're that's why it's like, man, when we limited it to 12, it's like we each get 6 choices, but it's like, what if we want to add a few more?
Screw it. I'm going to go Derek the Black Beast Lewis.
I have him on my list too. Good choice.
Again, you get the great voice lines. You have a heavy hitter who, he has one punch knockout power, which, is not going to be really conducive in a fighting game, but it's. I mean,
he could hit. Like, he'll be a big too, because he'll be a large person in there.
Yeah,
and
he has a better.
Have those different sizes that can
different
really
profile.
Change the way. He'll move slow.
Different speeds at play. See, I was toying with putting Francis Ngannou in this, but I think that he looks almost too archetypal in like his body type and everything. Whereas Derek Lewis, we get a little bit of a different size and speed situation going with him. But he's still agile and still able to jump around and everything. Like we see him throw flying knees and head kicks all the time. So I want to say Derek Lewis is my pick.
Here's a thought that I had too, in terms of kind of these like special traits, right? Like, and we can do what we want because we're not actually making this game, right? So like, it doesn't need to, be properly balanced and everything like that. That's for the developers to figure out, when this game gets made. What we could have Derek Lewis do, like, listen, if he gets behind in a fight, let's say he's getting like really beat up and like, maybe not being perfected, but like the health bar is distinctly different from his opponent's. His power actually goes up dramatically, so he can like really equalize it. It's kind of that like Homer Simpson thing,
or kind of like the gauges in certain fighting games where you get like you take on enough damage and your super fills up.
Or that maybe it would be like that, but then his like he can keep doing his supers; it doesn't deplete.
And he counters jujitsu by just bench pressing them, basically.
Yeah, maybe that could be that. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be fun. But yeah, I like that you chose him. I liked when we're picking the same people, because then we're going to get more of the people that we wanted to get into this game together. So it kind of matches the visions, right? So should I go next? Or you
go for it.
Derek Lewis.
No, I think Derek Lewis. I mean, he kind of speaks for himself again. Great voice line, great personality, and he adds some much needed body diversity in this, as well as some size diversity. I mean, we have Yuri on here, but he's a light heavyweight. And I think he's a great pick for this list.
So my next choice is going to be and this will give us. I think there's no surprise that this guy should be in the game. Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yes.
When we were talking about this idea, I kind of pitched this person as Khabib as somebody that we would put in this game, right? The idea there's this Russian wrestler sambo guy who grew up wrestling bears, and he comes in, and I think he would be perfect for the game, because he's gonna put you down, he's gonna clamp down your arm, and he's just gonna beat and smash every time he hits you. I picture like a kind of like a Batman 66 type of smash, kind of just flash onto the screen somewhere. Maybe not full splashed on the screen so you can see what you're doing, but like somewhere on it, it would be very visible and you'd smash, smash, smash.
You could very well do that with the smesh. I think that it would it depends on what our art style is, to be honest. Like, do we want to have it be like kind of like a stylized, like comic book inspired, almost like Street Fighter 4 was? Or are we going for like pixel art? Like, we haven't talked about that yet.
I guess that's a good point. We don't have to go deep into the weeds with it either, but like I do think that I imagine, I picture Street Fighter whenever I picture a fighting game. Like that's what a fighting game is in my head. So I picture something along those lines. That's maybe Street Fighter. I'm not sure which Street Fighter you would pick necessarily, but maybe 4, like you said.
4 has a good modernized style that's also not too far from the original vision of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And but we could do whatever.
That's true.
I would not want hyper realistic though. I want something
No. There has to be a cartoonish element to this. Like I definitely want exaggerated features with these people, these fighters. I think they need to stand out drastically from, let's say, how they might look in like a UFC EA Sports game.
Like, I want Derek Lewis to be enormous.
Yeah.
Like, I want him, like, Rufus in Street Fighter?
Well, I don't want his belly to be that big.
No, but I want him to, like, just feel like this giant presence in the game. And I want Khabib, of course, to fight in the Papaka. Papaka? Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe it's Papaha.
Papaha. I want him to fight in that because it's so distinctive and visually striking.
Or Papaha, maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
And Yuri, of course, has the kind of like the bald, the shaved head with the top knot.
Yeah.
Like we want these guys.
He's just gonna look like himself.
Yes. We want these people to be in their full glory from a visual perspective. Like
right.
If we end up putting GSP, I want him in the gi.
And Ronda Rousey, by the way, is going to have like the perma scowl.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It'll be like a much more exaggerated perma scowl, like even more so than the way she looks in pro wrestling nowadays.
She only smiles when she wins.
No. No. Well, maybe just a hint. Maybe like sneaks one in for like 2 frames.
All right. So it's my turn now, right?
Yes. Now you're picking.
Oh, God. I might go with another video game-esque fighter.
Okay. I'm curious who this ends up being.
Israel Adesanya.
Okay.
I think he's a good kickboxing archetype. We have Alex Pereira coming up for him, so I don't know if we can jump the gun and say this because that's a very capable challenger for him. But one of the greatest kickboxers, pure kickboxers we've seen in the UFC in a long time.
No, I mean that's absolutely fair.
But yeah, he's the most. Him and Volkanovski are the 2 most dominant champions in the men's side right now.
Yeah.
So it's I think he would fit really well into this. And honestly, it was him or another guy that I was going for. And I still think there's room for the other guy. It's not quite Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou, which was my other pick for that kind of heavyweight spot. But I think Israel Adesanya, a good well-rounded stand-up fighter for this list.
See, if it was me, I would substitute, and I don't have him on my list, but because I did not have Izzy on my list either. I considered him, but I left him off. If I was to put in Izzy or think about putting in Izzy, I would probably just put in Anderson Silva.
That's a good pick. Yeah,
absolutely. They're different fighters, but I think because the roster is going to be small enough, I would probably have to pick only one of the 2, and I guess it's probably part of it is just because they're middleweights, but also kind of this idea of these like advanced hyper striker kind of types. I feel like I would rather put Anderson Silva in.
Now, remember when they had Ken and Ryu in Street Fighter, and then down the road they put Gouken, who is their master, the guy who taught them. I feel like that's kind of what DLC we could add Anderson Silva as be like, oh, this is the guy that Israel Adesanya modeled his stand-up game after in MMA.
Sure, something like that. But I mean, not entirely true either. But
no, but like he said this much, like he was very inspired by Anderson Silva growing up.
Sure, I mean, so many of them were.
Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. But yeah, so good, solid choice. But yeah, I definitely had other thoughts, and that's okay. We're allowed to diverge here.
Well, we throw it to you then. Let's see where those thoughts are.
I'm putting in Nick Diaz.
That's a good one.
Not Nate. I wait because you can't put both. There's not room for both. Put
DLC.
Yeah, maybe DLC. Right. Not necessarily a like a color swap, but more specifically, I think just Nick Diaz, I wanted more particular because of the personality.
Mhm.
It's even more in your face than Nate is. You know, I think there's very much like he would just be like, you would hit a button and he'd flip you off, and like that might be an uppercut. Like he'd actually like flip you off in the fight, and he'd just like constantly be talking, but like you'd just be like, he'd be mouthing like MFers and that kind of thing. Maybe it would be like always like censoring his mouth or something.
That would be funny.
That would be kind of like cartoon style, right?
I mean,
but also like he would have
that.
he'd have that kind of that wide, you know, arms out, like striking kind of thing he'd be working, and you know, he'd have very quick punches he could throw at you, but also he could get you, you know, he could definitely get you in like, you know, arm bars and that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, it would be a very, very good addition in the sense of that personality. And I think that the kind of the trash talk would be like a gauge charge mechanic for him.
There you go.
Let him charge up like as he taunts.
That's a good thought.
Like he's the only one who has that. But yeah, that's a really good, because like that's so integral to his game, right? Like he has to, if he doesn't talk, he doesn't really perform.
Yeah, that I think we typically tend to see that, right? I mean, I think he does it whether he performs or not, but you know what I mean? I think I'm looking for different personalities, especially, and like different fighting styles. Now his obviously, I think of all the guys we've mentioned, I think his is the most boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, and he has that distinct way of standing, like Nate does too. Like they modeled, little brother modeled after big brother in so many ways in his career. But I think Nick is the call, and I do like, again, that he's going to stand in a very specific. There's like it's a lot of it's look, a lot of it is look, and you kind of piece together the moves from there. I think that's how I'm looking at it.
Sure. Now I have a very unconventional choice.
Okay,
we're sticking with some archetypes here. On the women's side,
okay,
I'm going to go Mackenzie Dern.
I actually have her on my list. That's a good choice.
Because we don't have like a straightforward jiu-jitsu fighter. And, you know, Mackenzie Dern is obviously trying to make herself well-rounded and like develop her striking game a little bit more. She's working with Jason Perillo, and she's made great strides, but, you know, she's still very much a specialist. Still has that 10 out of 10 skill of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And in Street Fighter V, they introduced a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter from Brazil. And, you know, she was a really fun character to play as.
Laura, right?
Yeah, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I that's my pick, Mackenzie Dern. And it'd be fun to see how they kind of implement her jiu-jitsu.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, she's obviously got this very unique accent that people like to, you know, get all over and everything like that. But I don't think we would do it in an insulting way, but I think you'd have to like kind of put that into her character in some way. Like, she has an interesting accent for someone from Arizona.
I think that, you know, she also fits, I mean, without being disrespectful, she fits the look that a lot of people want in their video game characters. She is an attractive person, and she has the skills to back it up.
I think she'd always be like kind of smiling. Yes, I picture her like as a constant smiling character in the game.
For sure, yeah. And I mean, that proved true in that story that I told a couple of weeks ago about when I was at UFCX, and she was just all smiles all the time, very friendly, very amicable. I don't think she's going to be the trash talker in the post-fight scene or the pre-fight thing. But, you know, she's she brings her own personality, and I think it's a personality that would fit well in this game.
I like it. Yeah. Easy choice for me, honestly. You said unorthodox, but I think that for the purposes of this exercise, I think she is a perfect choice. We're not just trying to pick the best fighters on the planet to be in the game. That's not what this exercise is. Then we can just name the top fighters. It's more about finding, you know, holes that to fill in our roster to make it, you know, diverse in several different ways, you know, representing different parts of the world, representing different cultures, representing different martial arts styles, representing different personalities. I think we're doing a good job of kind of building that in here.
Yes. That's the whole point of this game, right?
Exactly. I like the way we're moving in the direction with the roster, and the fact that we've named several individuals that we both had on our lists. I think we're in step in a lot of ways.
We are,
and so I like that.
We have 2 men left to pick and 1 woman left to pick. So, Scott, I'm throwing it to you.
Oh, that's right. We have named 3 women now. Okay. Yeah. You know what I'll do? I'm going to name our final woman here.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm picking Zhang Wei Li.
All right.
Several reasons. Number one, I think she would be one of the hardest hitters among the women.
Mm-hmm.
I think possibly even more so than Valentina Shevchenko, as far as like pure power from her hits.
Mm-hmm.
But also, again, we're representing different cultures here. We can now represent Asia, and I think that's important as well. And she is obviously a fantastic fighter. I think there's a lot of people who think that she's going to win next month in Madison Square Garden to get that belt back against Carla Esparza. Remains to be seen, of course, but she is a former champion. She hits very hard. I think that would offer she'd be kind of this like cold-blooded kind of not in like a mean way, but just kind of like very focused on the goal kind of thing, and just kind of like almost stone-faced in the sense.
Mm-hmm. And
so I like that
personality. She does have a good personality as well.
Oh, yeah, she does. Absolutely. I've spoken with her and she's, language barrier always makes it difficult when you're speaking with someone to really get a gauge of personality, but not always the case. And I think you start to get that if you talk to her enough. You can really tell the personality that she has.
So I'm very surprised that we did not end up with Amanda Nunes or Chris Cyborg on our list.
I thought about them, but I did not even include, there's one woman who I didn't name that didn't get into our game, but otherwise, yeah, I actually did not choose either of them.
And I mean, I know Mackenzie
not
Dern,
to be disrespectful.
Mackenzie Dern does come from a Brazilian background, but there is a distinct lack of Brazilian representation on our list right now.
There is, but I will say my choice for the 4th, because I'll just say who it is at this point, Jessica Andrade.
Okay.
Who very much Brazilian, but I like the idea that she's at least in touch with the native roots of Brazil. Mm-hmm. She comes out with the headdress. I don't know how that's viewed in Brazil or not. I don't know if there's some people who think it's disrespectful or people who think it's very respectful. I have no idea, but she does have a distinctive look. I think she's also like kind of like short and squat, so I imagine she's just like this this little tank in our game. And she's also pretty powerful too. So like she I think would have more like power grappling moves and some, good power striking. Like she's got that slam knockout of Rose Namajunas, who also did not make the cut. Right. So I imagine she could have like a good slam move in there too.
Yeah. It's I think that Andrade would be a really good archetype for this game. And all of these are, I'm just adding, these are ones that we're saying that are not making the list.
Yeah.
I'm just adding them to a separate category called DLC, because eventually it's going to happen. This game's going to be a runaway success, and we're going to want to support it post-launch.
Oh yeah, and we're going to have to make a lot of money because we need to, the publishers are going to want that.
The season pass is coming into shape.
It will be a season pass. That's right.
All right. So this is my final pick. We have 2 men left on the board.
Okay.
2 spots left to fill for the men.
Wow.
We have our 4 women, and those 4 women are Valentina Shevchenko, Ronda Rousey, Mackenzie Dern, and Zhang Wei Li.
Sure. So what do we got for the men?
So for the men right now, we have Yuri Prohashka, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, Derek Lewis, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Israel Adesanya, and Nick Diaz.
Okay. I like this roster.
Oh, man. I'm between like 6 different fighters right now on the men's side.
I'm hoping you're going to name one of the ones I have left that like I know I have to name, but I don't want to name, but I'm going to.
There's a fighter that's further down on the list of his division rankings that I am considering because, again, fights like a video game character, but I'm going to go with the champion in our hearts. Maybe not the champion on the board, but it's Charles Oliveira.
Ah, okay. The champion has a name, and that name is Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, according to everybody but the UFC.
Correct.
But, he's fighting this coming weekend. As people are listening to this, we're recording this a little early, but he's fighting this coming weekend at 280, fighting Islam Makhachev, which...
Hopefully nothing has gone wrong between now and then, and that fight actually is happening. But
I think that he has shown that he could also play into one of those interesting mechanics where, like, if he takes any amount of significant damage, all of his stats just skyrocket. He has the anti-Ronda Rousey.
Yeah. So it's similar in some ways to Derek Lewis.
But also very, very well-rounded. He's fast.
true.
He's a good striker. Obviously an amazing jiu-jitsu player. And yeah, he has a hell of a heart at this point. I mean, he was criticized early on for quitting if the going got tough. That is clearly not the story anymore for anybody who's been paying attention.
No, I don't think so.
So I think that he's a great all-around fighter, and he deserves a spot on our list.
I didn't have him on my list, actually. And again, not disrespect, but I had other ideas in mind. And now I'm forced, because I'm making the last pick, I'm forced to make a pick here that I know we have to make for the sake of our game.
Okay.
Conor McGregor.
I was
have
trying
to
to avoid it.
No, I have to. I have to, because especially when you frame it around the idea that we need a boss, like a bad guy, is it not Conor McGregor?
I think he should be maybe the first boss character, like the first one you encounter, because you need a good fighter to be the final boss, like an unstoppable force, like an intimidating...
And there was a time he was.
There
really was a time. Like, I'm not the biggest Conor McGregor fan. I don't really like to prop him up for a multitude of reasons. I also think even competitively, he kind of had, let's say, a favorable road to the top.
Oh yeah.
Like, he earned what he got. He beat Jose Aldo the way he did, and then he beat Eddie Alvarez the way he did. So he won those belts in dominant fashion. Granted, the one against Aldo was before the fight really got going. I don't think that proved anything. I think he proved everything he needed to against Eddie Alvarez, who I actually thought was going to win that fight.
So did I.
So you got to give the guy credit where it's due. I don't think it would be fair to take that from him, but I still always thought that Khabib was the better 155 pounder who fought that night when he beat Eddie Alvarez. And, he proved it when the two of them fought. But Conor McGregor as the bad guy, it has less to do with maybe how you view him in terms of being a quality fighter, either now or past or all time or what have you. But he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy. He's going to throw money at all these goons to fight under him. It'll be red panty night underneath everything. He's hiring all these people to fight like that. So that's kind of how I picture it. But also he's got that stance. He's got the bravado, the personality. I think he really kind of is in a lot of ways a video game character as well.
Yes. So that's a good pick. I thought about that and I was like, I don't really want to include him in my game, but I get it. He's the biggest star this sport has ever seen.
We needed a bad guy. We don't have that yet.
So here are some of the ones that I was thinking of that didn't make the game, but were on my list, and I'm going to add them to the DLC category. John Jones was my next pick.
Okay.
He's got the kind of long reach. He could kind of be like a Sagat archetype, right? He uses a lot of elbows.
I don't know. I mean, see, that was part of why I had a problem putting John in, is like, his style is kind of just like, I don't know, it's kind of just MMA. And also I feel that's what Mighty Mouse Johnson is, but in a much more fun and engaging way. And,
that's true.
And
but
has a much more
different body types.
Of course. No question there. We do not have necessarily that long and spindly guy, although if we do put, actually, no, we do, because you picked Israel Adesanya. That's why I don't think we necessarily need John. I think we ended up in the right way not to have John as one of our main fighters.
I was thinking he would be the final boss.
Well, sure. I mean, that would if he is, he's obviously a DLC like bad guy. He might be like the shadow bad guy.
He's the Akuma.
He's the one who you think is the good guy all the time, and all of a sudden he's revealed to be this bad guy after all this time. Now, why? I mean, that doesn't mirror anything in real life, though, does it?
So the other two that I added to our DLC list that did not make the cut, Amanda Nunes, we talked about.
Sure. It's a good choice.
Great pick for this. And then Rafael Fiziev. That was the one that I was like, he's a little bit further down in his division, but he fights like a video game character.
Okay. All right.
But so I guess, do you have any DLC characters you want to add to
I do,
our list
yeah.
there?
No, I've got a couple. I did not get to mention Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Oh, that's a good one.
The Southern karate guy who's just the nicest guy in the whole wide world. I mean, this is like, I basically just named a video game character like right there. That's the end. Like, I don't even need to see anything anymore.
It absolutely is. That's an amazing pick. I did not even consider him, honestly, and I should have.
He was my number one pick. He was the number one name I put down. When I started this exercise, and we'd already talked about Khabib, but even before that, because I just hadn't thought about Khabib when I kind of sat down to do it, I was like, oh, Wonderboy Thompson has to be in.
That jogged my memory of another person we need to add. Michel Pereira.
Yeah, that would be fun too.
Backflips.
That would be fun too.
Breakdancing.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of, like, I mean, we really could have a big roster, but I think it was good to kind of limit it to a specific number like we have.
That's why we're adding the DLC. This is down the road. We have our launch lineup.
The publishers they're just going to love us for this. Like, it's like, look at these game directors. They know what they're doing. They're trying to monetize. They're trying to make a fun game. It's perfect.
One that I toyed with every single round, but did not go with, both Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson.
Okay.
Tony Ferguson's personality would be incredible.
Tony I weighed heavily too, but I didn't have him on my list.
Especially against Anthony Pettis, where he started like rolling after he got hurt. Like that was fun as hell. And every Tony Ferguson fight in that stretch was just so violent and so fun. And his personality is amazing.
He's going to fight in shades too.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, he has to fight in shades. That's the only way to do it. And especially when it's indoors. maybe outdoors sometimes he takes them off, but like indoors now he's always got it on. The only other name that I didn't mention from my lists is because, again, we were on the same page with a lot of these. I thought that was really great. Did you have Khabib on your list, by the way, too?
I did, yeah. But I figured you were going to get to him because you did mention him when you pitched.
I did, yeah. But I was making sure that you had him. The last name that I didn't get to name was Alistair Overeem.
That's a good one.
You know,
but it'd be Ubereem era, right?
Ubereem, yeah, absolutely. He's going to be like just jacked through the roof. Before each fight, he's going to like be taking the last bite of horse meat or like a horse meat sandwich or something. But also like, he's got a very distinctive look. Even outside of that, like he's got the little scar kind of, you know, on his cheek there, or like his face there.
He looks like a video game bad guy.
He does. I don't necessarily think he's like truly a bad guy.
No, he seems like a good guy, actually.
I mean, he seems like, from what you hear, it sounds like he likes to slide into DMs of a lot of people too. But like, because I remember I saw that around, like it was like a year or two ago. You were seeing like people were screenshotting him, just like this is like the week of the fight. He's like just like going into like random women's DMs, which doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Hey, you gotta get down to 265 somehow.
But my thinking is he really is like that Sagat type. He is like Scott to a T, you know.
That's good.
But he's like, obviously he's a credentialed kickboxer, similarly to Israel Adesanya, but like much bigger, you know, more powerful. But I mean, there's a lot of things I like about putting in Adesanya instead of Overeem, but I did like to put Overeem in there as well.
But man, that makes me want to put Brock Lesnar as a DLC character.
Oh, that would be fun too. I didn't even think about Brock. That's a good one.
You bringing up Ubereem. That was pretty much, was that the final Ubereem match that we got, was when he went up against Brock Lesnar and basically kicked his kidney into last week?
It might have been. I don't remember
after that,
exactly.
I feel like we started seeing the decline of Ubereem and back into regular Alistair Overeem.
But the funny thing is, like, it's not like that sapped him of his fighting ability. Like, he didn't get to the title until after that.
Yeah.
There was a time, and maybe you remember this as well, but there was a time where Alistair Overeem was just considered this like can crushing, heavyweight who wasn't fighting like top guys. If you look at his record, like basically more or less since then, he's almost only fought like top guys. Like, I mean, these are the names he fought. I'm talking about like 2009-ish, before he was really defending his Strikeforce belt a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So he defended it against Brett Rogers. Say what you want about Brett Rogers, whatever. In 2011, he fights Fabricio Verdum as part of the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. And from then on, it's Verdum, Lesnar, Bigfoot Silva, Travis Brown, Frank Mir, Ben Rothwell, Stefan Struve, Roy Nelson, Junior Dos Santos, Andrei Arlovsky, Stipe Miocic, Mark Hunt, again Verdum, Francis Ngannou, Curtis Blades, I mean, that's all in a row.
Oh my God.
That's in a row. That is a murderer's row. And he fared pretty well against most of these guys.
I did not remember the fact that the Francis Ngannou and Curtis Blades fights were back to back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, that poor guy. Though he got brutally finished in both of those.
Yes, he did. And in different ways.
In completely different ways. But yeah, those elbows from Blades. I mean, I know everybody remembers the Ngannou knockout where we saw Overeem's soul leave this planet.
Mm-hmm. And then there's, of course, the fight where first, for the record, as we all know, Alistair Overeem got Stipe Miocic to tap.
Yeah,
Alistair felt it. He felt it.
That was the first time, I remember as like an MMA fan being like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't interview these fighters after they get knocked
that was
out.
when the conversations all started, and I think rightfully so. But yeah, anyway, to get all the way back to it, yeah, I think he very much is like a fighter who belongs in a video game like ours. And I mean, do you remember, by the way, and this is the last thing I really need to say about Overeem personally, but do you remember because WWF came out with like different arcade style games over time. They came out with one called WWE All Stars like 11 years ago, right? Do you remember this one?
Oh my God, that was 11 years ago?
I think it was about then. It's 10 or 11, man. It might even be 12.
It was 11 years ago. I'm going to die very soon, I feel like.
But the point is, you played that, right?
I didn't play it, but I've seen it, yeah.
Okay. It's a legitimately fun game. I really like it. It's one of the few PS3 disc-based games that I still own, because a lot of them I got digital games for them as well, and I kind of moved on, but they're never going to re-release this game. It's never going to happen. So my one way to play it is on my PS3. And when I did the create a character career mode, I made Alistair Overeem.
Of course, yes.
Because it made perfect sense.
I love it. I do that all the time though. Like I remember NBA Street Volume 2. I was
amazing game.
Amazing game. You create your own character and then you go through a career mode basically. LeBron James was a senior in high school when that game came out, I believe. So of course I made LeBron James, and
smart.
I was just, I dominated the current NBA landscape on the street courts.
I like that. That's a good choice. I didn't do that. I probably did me. I was probably like 5'8", which is what I am. I'm not a tall man.
But yeah, so let's wrap up with this. So we have our roster here. We have Yuri Prohashka, Demetrius Johnson, Derek Lewis, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Israel Adesanya, Nick Diaz, Charles Oliveira, Conor McGregor, Valentina Shevchenko, Ronda Rousey, Mackenzie Dern, and Zhang Weili. Who are our 4 bosses?
Do we need 4 bosses?
That's what it was in Street Fighter 2. So that's what I'm taking.
Right,
and that's what it's been in Street Fighter traditionally. Is like four boss characters that head up Shadaloo.
Okay. Definitely Conor McGregor is the top boss. Has to be.
I still disagree with that, but I could see him being like one of the from a money perspective, yeah, but
that's the thing. He's the overarching funding the whole organization because he's the only one with money. Literally no one else has money.
I mean, Dana White's funding the whole operation.
Well, that's true. He's pulling the strings, but you're never going to fight as him.
Well, you could fight him, but the only person who he will fight is Tito Ortiz, who's not in the game, so he can't fight him.
When Tito gets added to the game, that's when Dana comes to.
Well, hey, he's in UFC 4 as a playable character. Dana is.
Yeah, he is.
So is Bruce Buffer.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan was in 3, I think. I don't think he's in 4.
There was a clip circulating about Joe Rogan doing stand-up in 1994, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, look at this skinny mini.
Oh my God. If you watch any of the old stuff of Joe Rogan, it is a different person.
It's so weird.
It's funny to watch his evolution of just, basically if he was a Pokemon, he was evolving into Dana White. How his look
kind of did, didn't he? Yeah.
He really did.
Now, I would fight pretty hard for Conor to be the actual bad guy of the game.
I would put him as the Balrog, like the first guy. He's a money fighter, he's a prize fighter. He talks a big game, and he's the first challenge. Like that's Balrog in Street Fighter 2. He's the first boss that you fight, and he's a guy who talks a big game. He has people in the background throwing money up in the air. That's where Conor McGregor fits in for me. But
we have too many nice guys. Who's the boss? Like most of these people are nice people.
That's true. All these people are nice.
That's
people.
The problem.
Most of them are, yeah.
And I don't think you could have you couldn't have Khabib and Conor on the same team.
Well,
I don't think that works.
We don't have to have it be the same thing where they're in this shadow organization. But I think Khabib would be an amazing final boss if it's not John Jones, who's not in this game. I think Khabib's got to be the final boss. But either way, I think he's a boss character, right?
Sure. I guess. I don't know. If they're not in the same organization, then yeah, fine.
No, this is just like, these are the guys you have to fight to be the actual champion of the game.
All right. I guess in that sense, sure. I think absolutely. Then you would probably put in Valentina Shevchenko.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then one more.
Derek Lewis.
I think Derek Lewis is a good fit as well. I was kind of leaning that. I was thinking either Derek Lewis,
because you gotta have different fighter types that you're fighting along the way to the end too, and I think you need a big one in there.
Or Nick Diaz was another one where I was thinking like,
I want a bigger one. I want the guy. I want the girth. I want the size. There needs to be a physical, imposing presence along the way to the end too.
By the way, that should be the title of this episode. I want the girth.
I want the girth. I like it. That wouldn't tell anyone anything, unfortunately, but it would be great.
And then the box art, we think Demetrius Johnson and maybe, Demetrius Johnson and Connor?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I think that's
which is pretty much what the box art was for like UFC 3, I think.
Yeah. Well, it was Connor first, and then it was DJ was like the post-fight like Champions Edition.
Yeah.
And then UFC 4, Khabib eventually became it. I forget who
Did
was
he?
I think it might have been Connor again in UFC. Yeah, no, it was Izzy and Masvidal.
And Masvidal,
on
correct.
UFC 4.
Yeah.
And then Khabib, when he retired, they put out like a GOAT edition or something like that.
Yeah.
And put Khabib on it. But I think that's a fun little exercise that we just did right there.
I enjoyed it. I think that would be a hell of. I really do want an MMA UFC fighting
arcade
game.
Style fighting game.
Yeah. Or at the very least, and I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it until I will it into existence. I want like Def Jam Fight for New York, but UFC fighters.
Yes.
I think that would just be wonderful. If you want, like, because it's going to be so hard to like bring back the idea of Def Jam Fight for New York, or like that type of thing with like rappers today. It's just the culture's changed. It's a very different thing now. So I think if you could take that fighting style and you create different like environs and cages and things like that. And I don't want to go too deep on this. I could talk about this all day, but I think if you did that, and then you put actual MMA fighters in there, and you could build like through the career mode, you could build your fighters' diverse skill set, but it's also still like kind of like a kinetic fight as opposed to UFC for EA Sports. Well, all the UFC EA Sports games, they're trying to be sports sims more than they're trying to be fight games, and I don't like that as much. That's why I don't love the games as much. I can't get into them.
I have a good time with them, but I definitely see like I would love to see a different take, similar to how like WWE 2K is like trying to approximate the actual events of the WWE. I would love to see another arcade game. Like I know we had 2K Battlegrounds, I think it was called. That was like the arcade style. Oh no, that was the basketball one. But there was a 2K arcade style game as well that came after All Stars. And
yeah, it's 2K Battlegrounds, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so.
What is the one I'm 2K?
Because that came out in the last couple of years. I didn't play it. I think it was a free.
It is.
It was a free game that was given out on PlayStation Plus at some point, and I meant to like try it because I do like WWE All Stars. I have a feeling it's not going to be as good, so that's why I've like I'll do it eventually.
Yeah, 2K Playgrounds is the basketball one.
Yes,
that's like an arcade style.
Yeah, it's definitely not NBA Jam, but I actually kind of like. My cousin and I will play it from time to time.
But Scott, that is our video game, our fighting video game. But we had another gaming adjacent topic that we wanted to touch on before we wrap up this episode.
We do, yeah.
We have talked often about like, oh man, I wish they would make a video game of this. Wish they'd make a video game of this.
Oh, everyone says that, yeah.
But what about popular series that never got a good video game to date? So we each have three things here.
And we say popular series, we mean popular non-gaming series.
Yes. So any kind of property that you would love to see translate to not just a video game, a good video game.
Yeah.
So
they haven't been done justice yet, either because they haven't made one or because they haven't made a good one.
Correct. So I have 3 here. I know you have 3 over there.
Yep.
I want you to start because I started the fighter draft here.
Okay,
What
that's
is
fair.
your first IP?
So for me, it is A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, like that world, right? The world of Westeros. To my knowledge, the only Game of Thrones games that they have out there are the Telltale one, which I played, and it's fine. It's probably being even generous, but
Yeah.
there's that one. And God, I think they released one for like the PS3 generation or something like that. That like I don't remember being very well received either.
Correct. I mean, there's one that's Reigns Game of Thrones. Did you ever play Reigns, where it's a card-based game where you swipe left and right to like be like make decisions as a king?
No,
They released
I
a
don't know
Game
that
of
one.
Thrones version of that, and basically you have to like last as long as you can without your people revolting or without like invaders killing you. And they did a Game of Thrones version of that. That was kind of fun, but it was
Okay.
it was very much like a choose your own adventure style game.
No, I'm thinking like a AAA style game. So for
Correct.
me, so that's what I want. That's the property I want. Here's, I guess, the formation of what could be an idea of it, right? Like, I'm not a games developer. I don't expect this to be, a foolproof plan, and you don't have enough time to let me give you an hour-long pitch. But I will tell you my thinking for what this game might resemble is kind of an open world game, right?
Mm-hmm.
A mix of The Witcher 3 and Grand Theft Auto 5, in the sense that I like the idea of in GTA 5 you had 3 different characters you control, and you would kind of change them on the fly. So like you could be in different parts of the world of Ice and Fire, right? Someone may be in the north, someone may be more King's Landing, and somebody maybe across the sea in Assos. And they would have different things. You'd have quest lines that you'd be doing for like in certain areas. I imagine if let's say we're doing it in the Game of Thrones timeline, the actual like events of the TV series, I think you'd probably be playing as Jon. You'd be playing as Arya, because she goes all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe
Don't say Bran. Don't say Bran.
It's Bran. No, it's not Bran.
Play as Hodor.
Hodor. I love Hodor. I don't know who I would pick actually for the third one. I'm formulating that still, I guess, too. But
by the way, have you been paying attention to Ben Schwartz's thread on Twitter where he got COVID late last month, and he was like, "I've never watched Game of Thrones. I'm going to watch Game of Thrones while I have COVID." And he has been live tweeting his Game of Thrones reaction. It is a delight to go through and read and know exactly what episode he is on when he's reacting.
Well, having just rewatched it too, like I actually went back and rewatched it while I've been watching House of the Dragon, because I'm very much into this. Like I read the books and everything like that, so I will definitely check that out.
He's seemingly updating it daily, and he's getting closer and closer to the end. So it's exciting to and his you can tell exactly when he gets to the Red Wedding and all this other stuff.
Okay.
And then he had another one where he's like, "Can we just get through one wedding without somebody dying?"
No, we cannot. That's not how it works.
But that's a good pick. That is a very
Okay.
good pick. I was wondering where you were going when you were like, it's a Grand Theft Auto inspired thing. I always thought
you like the pitch too. It's
I
not
do.
just like
I do.
Okay.
When you're like, yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto, and I'm like, what? You can go to the strip clubs. You can.
I mean,
you can steal
look,
cars.
If there's one thing Game of Thrones is known for, it's all the sex. So I imagine there would possibly be a brothel, because games have to be made for 16-year-old I guess post-pubescent boys as well.
But yeah, that's a good pick. I would totally buy that game. I remember when there was a fake leak that came out that Bethesda was making a Game of Thrones game.
Okay.
And all these high-res assets leaked and everything of character models. And I'm like, oh my God, this is totally happening. I mean, this was 2015, 2016. And then
I have a vague memory of this too.
It proved to be fake, but it was just a very well-made fake. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, could you imagine Skyrim, but Game of Thrones? This is the height of Game of Thrones hype. Remember? Back then it was I mean, maybe the height was at the start of the final season when everybody was losing their minds over it. But I remember thinking oh my God, if you could get Bethesda, the people who made Skyrim, to make a Game of Thrones game, that would be incredible. So
also there would be dragons. You could be riding a dragon as well. And I think it's probably not spoiling too much to say Jon Snow would be your avenue to get that.
Yeah, I think that would be a very fun game, and I think that we should We should make that. Let's make that.
All right, I like it.
Screw the UFC game. Let's make that one.
So what's yours? Let's hear what your first ideas.
This is a very easy answer for me. The first one, Iron Man.
Okay, sure.
We've had some Iron Man games. The first two movies were adapted into Iron Man games. I would say the second Iron Man game by Sega, which was Iron Man 2 based on the movie, was the better of them, but still not very good. Like, it was still like a 6 out of 10. You know, it wasn't very good.
Yeah, we're looking for great. Like, there's a difference between like it's okay or it's not bad. We want greatness.
And of course, he's appeared in several games. He's in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is an amazing fighting game. But that's not an Iron Man game.
I don't think that counts. I think you're right. I think
he's in the Avengers game, which, you know, I've clearly made my opinions on the Marvel's Avengers game that came out.
How do you like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, by the way? Because he has a big role in those games.
They're fine. I think they haven't aged particularly great, but they're fun.
That's probably fair.
But
I liked them at the time.
EA just announced an Iron Man game like a month ago.
Yeah, I almost feel like you're cheating a little bit here, sir.
I have high hopes for it, but I mean, there hasn't been a great Iron Man game released yet.
Yeah.
So I think that qualifies.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That was the first one that popped in my mind when I was like, why don't we have a great Iron Man game?
Well, I'll tell you, I had given some thought, and this isn't one of my ideas, so we don't have to go deep into it, but I gave thought to the idea of a Superman game, because holy heck, do we have like a bad run of Superman games.
Yes.
We're very much missing a great Superman game. I don't have a good idea for how to make one is the problem, which is why I left it off my list. I'm like, F if I know, right? So the only thing I have in my head is I bet you we could entrust it to Rocksteady. I think they could make. I think if we left it up to them, they might be able to make a great Superman game. I feel like they could do it
for a while.
Was it them? Oh, maybe that's why. Maybe that's because stuck in my head.
I think it's in Arkham Knight. You can find like an answering machine, and there's like a voicemail that's like talking about this guy who was like, you know, kind of like describing Superman, and it.
I don't remember that. I played a lot of that game.
It was
I believe you.
I mean, it was a very hidden Easter egg, and that's what made everybody think that that's what Rocksteady's doing next, the Superman game. And the theory is the reason that the Suicide Squad that they're putting out next year took so long, because they didn't announce a game for a long, long time after Arkham Knight, was because they were trying to make a Superman game and they couldn't figure out.
And they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's like, what do you do? Like, video games are all about like health bars and stuff. It's like, if Superman is so powerful, I mean, you could move him to another planet, but it's like that kind of changes what he's about. So it doesn't. You'd have to find a way to make it like a power fantasy without it being like almost boring or relying on like, oh no, save them before they all die. Like it's not.
Well, the way you hurt Superman is to hurt the ones around him.
But that's not. No one wants to play that.
Yeah, nobody wants an escort.
Those are the worst.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky. I don't have the solution to that puzzle.
Or maybe flying really fast to get somewhere before something bad happens. I don't know.
Like maybe the idea would be like almost speed runs. I'm like talking out an idea now already, apparently. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like the idea like not a speed run, but like seeing if you can, like, if you quickly enough like execute the goal, like, which is to stop the bad guy or like beat up these guys or like defuse the bomb or whatever, or get rid of it or whatever. If you do it like quick enough, that could be where the challenge lies.
It could be. Yeah, I think that's got to be it, right? Like, otherwise, like, I mean, I think there has to be a fair share of like beating up goons as well, like just destroying them, because that's the power fantasy, right?
Right, but like when you say beating them up, I mean it's pretty much one hit KOs, right? But you still have to take the time to hit them, or you know, do you know, the breath and everything. Again, this was not actually my choice, so I'm sorry that I actually kind of stole it in the sense of doing that. But like, I mean, it's almost unavoidable. We got to talk about how Superman had no good games.
But there are characters that have challenged Superman. Doomsday.
Sure. Absolutely, and those
Lex
would be the
Luthor.
boss fights. And I think that a Superman game could excel if it had fantastic boss fights, which is why Rocksteady does come to mind. I think they do a really good job with those boss fights. But my actual second idea is I have 2 second ideas. No, but my actual second idea is, and this is unorthodox, I think you're going to be surprised. Knives Out.
Oh, okay. I could see that. Like, there's a murder mystery mission in Hitman.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking Hitman necessarily, but I was thinking of like LA Noire as actually my inspiration for this.
Yes.
Less the, the shootouts and that kind of thing, and really more about detective work and especially interrogation. I love who doesn't love the interrogations? And there's that meme that still goes around with doubt, right?
Yeah.
But I loved that part of the game. I think that that's an unfortunate game because like they never revisited the series. That was one from Rockstar, but it wasn't developed.
Team Bondi.
Team Bondi. Yeah. Thank you. Australia, right?
Yeah, Rockstar came in and basically helped them get it across the finish line.
Exactly. But like, I mean, there's elements of it that just don't work as well for me. But there's so many elements that I was really all about and I really loved. And I've revisited the game and like, yeah, it's not. It maybe parts of it hasn't aged well, but I think it's still fun to do those detective missions, and that's what I would want out of a Knives Out game. Is like maybe you play like 2 or 3 long form quest lines. And you could do this. I mean, they do, Sherlock Holmes games. They do. I'm sure they've done Agatha Christie style with like Hercule Poirot and that kind of thing. But I want a Knives Out one. I think that would be fun. You bring in Daniel Craig to do the voice. You get the fun, kooky characters. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I would love to. I actually thought there was going to be a wave of games like LA Noire when LA Noire first came out. Turns out that that never happened.
Never materialized. Yeah,
I thought we were going to get a whole bunch of games kind of copying that style, and it did not happen. So
I'm going to bring it back with Knives Out.
You're bringing it out, Knives Out.
Do you like that? Do you like that? Does that appeal to you?
It does. Yeah. I'd love to see more games in that style, and that's a good property to kind of move it over.
Excellent. So what's your second choice now that I've done 2?
I'm going to do another superhero one, but not one that I think that people immediately think of. The Boys.
Oh, okay.
I think that's such a fun, like we're kind of getting that premise with Rocksteady next, which is
now be careful of spoiler territory on this conversation.
Well, I mean, the whole point of The Boys is it's not the Justice League, but it's the Justice League, right? It's what if the Justice League were a bunch of jerks and dictators, basically.
Emphasis on deck, yeah.
And you have these regular people trying to take them down. And that's basically what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is looking like it's going to be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I mean, Homelander is such a great character. You love to hate him. And there's a lot of other really well done characters in that stable. And I think that it would be really fun to see some sort of take on how do normal people without powers try and compete with these characters. It would lead to some incredible boss fights, right? Where you're just trying to take on these overpowered enemies, and you don't have any powers. You have to get creative with how you take them down. So like that's the mission, right? Is you're trying to sneak in and find some sort of secret weapon that can take down this one guy, and then this other person has a weakness to this, so you need to sneak in and get or get through and enter this lab to get this other stuff. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways you could go with that.
And that's another idea of a game that I feel like you would need the boss fights to be what kind of pushes you over the hump, right? But I think another element of that is these bosses would need to feel like almost immortal until you figure it out. Like it should be oppressively hard unless you figure out the right way to do it.
It's From Software.
There you go. Exactly. I was kind of thinking along the lines of like a Soulsborne-ish difficulty level.
Okay. Well, I think that is that's my second pick.
Do you like that suggestion though? This is your idea, so I'm trying to enhance your idea, not like take it for my own. I
would want it. Yeah, it almost needs to be like almost a puzzle game and figuring out
I like that
the way to beat an enemy, but then you actually have to execute on that puzzle solution.
Sure, and probably with a very slim margin for error.
Yes. So I think that would be a really good time. And it would be very difficult, and you need to get the right, like maybe a Platinum Games as the developer, stylish action.
Interesting.
Loads of personality. I mean, Butcher has such a great personality for a video game character, and Carl Urban masterfully plays it.
Sure. And I mean, I'm sure he'd do great voice work.
He would. He would knock it out of the park. And then what's his name? Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander. He is. I mean, God, what a great role, and what a great job he has done in that role.
He does a good job
menacing.
with like an extraordinarily like almost hammy, but like very menacing, like you're saying. Like he walks like a very fine line, and it's a very unusual line, and he does a good job.
He would be an incredible final boss.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you have to be.
But yeah, so that's my second pick. What is your final pick here?
My final pick, and again, another one that I think is going to be very out of left field. Ocean's 11.
Ooh, I like it. I can see it in my head already.
It's the idea would be it would be kind of similar to Hitman. This is where I actually get Hitman. The new Hitman games, you'd plot out how to execute a heist using your team of 11 guys. You could set them up in different ways. Maybe you can almost switch to them on the fly in a similar way that I had outlined on for my Game of Thrones idea, or it could be more scripted, like maybe like you execute this part, then it moves over to the next guy or something like that, right? But it would be all these sandbox environments, kind of like Hitman. They'd give you, okay, here's the world, figure it out.
I like it.
It's pretty much the idea. I think it would work really well.
You've got to figure out the best way to get in. You got to time everything just right. Like, all right, well, once he does this, then this character needs to go do this.
I haven't played games like Sly Cooper or Thief, but I imagine there might be elements to kind of what I'm talking about in there as well.
I'm not a big stealth guy usually, so I haven't played those games either. So I think that sounds like a really fun time, though.
Awesome. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
The coordination, I think, would be a key element of it.
And it also it's very ripe for the idea that you could make this a massively multiplayer experience where there's 11 of you working at the same time, even to do that kind of thing. You could have it where maybe there are CPU controlled elements that will kind of walk through the steps for you, but that maybe they execute it a little differently, or they can kind of like roll with the punches a little better if it's an actual person. And that, you can open it up into lobbies and 11 people can work together to do this. I think that'd be amazing.
It sounds almost like the GTA Online heists.
I guess in a sense, I think I played an online heist like maybe once.
Same.
Way back. We're talking like 8 years ago
when it first got
kind of new.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because that wasn't a launch thing. That was heists were added after the fact.
Right. But obviously those heists, like you're doing them and then you're driving off and you're going to all these places. Like here, it'd be much more of a sandbox, like closed place, but like do what you want within that closed place. Kind of like I said, Hitman.
Absolutely. So I have one pick left, and my pick is not as unorthodox. Mine is actually maybe the most orthodox pick on this entire list.
Is it Superman?
No. If it was, we'd just be able to skip it.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, thanks for stealing my idea, Scott, you jerk. Hey, what do you got?
Rambo.
Okay. Yeah.
We've talked about Broforce.
That's pretty straightforward.
Broforce is a fun game, and it's basically like, what would a good Rambo game be? Rambro is even in it. But
yes, he is.
Rambo, I think that let's see, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for Rambo video games. He's had 7 video games. And from what I understand, none of them have been any good. Maybe the light gun thing that shows up in Dave & Buster's every once in a while is fine. But even that, I've played it, and I'm like, this is not super great.
Okay.
There was one that came out... God, when was that? It was 2014, and it has a Metacritic rating of 23.
Believe
not great.
It. That
not
sounds
great
right
at all.
Especially when you didn't hear about its release. That usually is a good sign for it being terrible.
Giant Bomb nominated Rambo for the Worst Game Award in 2014.
Nice.
Yeah. So that is a game that Game Informer gave a 4 out of 10. So it's not a good game. But it's so ripe for a good adaptation. Like, and he's appeared in Mortal Kombat 11 as a DLC character. He's perfect for that. And I just don't know why we can't get this right. Like, shooters, that's maybe the biggest genre in the world of video games. Why can't we make a good, like, action game with heavy shooting elements out of maybe one of the greatest action movie stars of all time?
I had given a couple of thoughts to, maybe some action games like that. Terminator was one.
Oh, Judgment Day was a pretty good arcade game.
Exactly. But, like... I mean, there's almost a difference between like that type of an arcade video game and like the traditional like last 30 years of consoles video game, right? Yeah. That predates that. Like there are a lot of gamers today that were not alive when that game came out. I think we can again, even the idea of arcades is like basically dead, unfortunately, and it kind of breaks my heart to say. You too, I imagine. But Terminator's one. I had also thought of G.I. Joe I think would be kind
Probably
of
along
cool.
the same lines.
My thought was that G.I. Joe could be almost like a squad-based third-person shooter, but like they'll because there were so many colorful characters in them, you could also have them be a little more like cartoonish and a little more out there than we traditionally have. I think that would be fun. And then the other one was Die Hard.
Die Hard,
just like a straight up Die Hard game, or like
the
NES
some
stealth
Die Hard game is terrible.
Yeah, I believe it. I never played it. I didn't even know, like, I knew it was there, but I never played it. But yeah, like the idea there would be a lot of stealth elements to it, but like also there would be these shootouts that you would very much get into, and they would be like heavily kinetic shootouts. But then you'd have to like very quickly get back into stealth mode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a bunch of ideas. I don't want to go deep into it because we've already gave our 3, and I kind of gave 7 because I'm a jerk.
That's okay.
I'm a jerk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. I hope you enjoyed them, sir.
Yeah. I think that you had some really great ideas. Yours were a little bit more creative than mine, but I think that we've laid out a good idea for a fighting game and several good ideas for IPs that could use their own good game.
So listening, all developers, give us a call. Like we're available. We've got some fantastic ideas. Just give us a pile of money and we'll do the work for you. Don't worry.
We've already given all the ideas though.
That's true.
We need to put this up behind a paywall.
Give us donate $1. I don't know. We don't have a Patreon. Just send me $1. I don't know.
Patreon? Do you pronounce it Patreon?
What is Patreon? Patreon. I don't know.
Patreon. I've never heard it Patreon.
Well, now you have.
St. Patreon's Day. All right. Well, yeah. Scott, I think that's the show.
Yeah, that's our show. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you have found us, and make sure you tell everybody that you can listen to our show. Follow our social handles at Brian Pichet and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can reach us with any questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you are hyped for at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games. We will talk to you next week.